everyone, it's Tessa and Stephanie from The Uncommon Creative. We are joined today by Charlotte Gamache, who will be a speaker at the Uncommon Creative Collective, September 22nd to 24th in the lovely Niagara-on-the-Lake. Thank you for joining us today, Charlotte.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited that you're going to be flying across the country next year to join us in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Cannot wait. Have you been before?
I've never been, no. I think I flew into Toronto Airport on our way to a destination one time, but I've never actually spent any time in Ontario.
So you will be joining us doing some demos with newborn babies. We're very excited. And in particular, you're going to be working on the beanbag. So tell us what you love about beanbag posing.
Oh, it's timeless. It's one of those things where I don't think the beanbag is ever going to be dated in newborn photography. It's always going to be a staple part of a session, whereas sometimes, props can always change and kind of be different every year. But with beanbag, it's so timeless and it's just simplistic, and, it can be as colorful or, as neutral as you want to be. So I love it. It's just very, very, as I said, it's nice and classic, and I just love to work on the beanbag.
Awesome. Have you developed somewhat of a workflow with your clients?
I have, yeah. So I have a particular workflow that I do every session. So I call them my staple poses. There's 4 poses that I try to do every session, of course, baby dependent on how cooperative that baby is, but the 4 staple poses that I'll do. And then if I have a really great sleepy baby, I will try and do some bonus poses. I do have my main poses that I do every single session. And then if I have an awesome baby and I can tell that baby is being very responsive to posing, then I will try my bonus posing as well. So, yeah.
So, Charlotte, do you work out of a commercial space, or are you?
I do. Yes. So I have a professional studio downtown in the city where I live, which is Maple Ridge, which is just on the outskirts of Vancouver. So all of my clients, I do require them to come to my studio for their sessions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And do you primarily use studio or natural lighting when you're working with babies?
Well, I used to be natural light when I was working in the basement in my home. And then when I got the studio space last year, the natural light was not right in the studio space. It wasn't giving me the look that I was used to. So I actually switched over to studio light, and I thought, why did I not do this sooner? I love it. It's so consistent, and I don't know why I didn't do studio light sooner, but now I'm like full on studio light in my studio.
Very excited that you'll be demonstrating this for the classes that you'll be teaching at the conference. I think people are going to be very excited to learn all about that.
Yes, I think so too. And I'm finding these days more people are switching over to studio light from natural light for that very reason. It's consistent. Your settings are not changing throughout your session. Your white balance and color stays the same. So yeah, I think I definitely see the trend now that people are kind of shying away from natural light, going into studio light just to make their sessions easier, especially for editing. It cut down my editing like tenfold. Like it takes no time to edit my sessions now because I don't have to mess with anything.
Yeah, speaking of editing, we notice you have such a lovely blanket fade in all of your imagery. Any little tricks or tips, or what do you do?
Part of that is because I shoot wide open. Okay. So I'm shooting my beanbag shots at like f2, f1.8, which kind of throws that kind of bokeh. Is it bokeh? Is that what they say? Bokeh? I don't know how they pronounce it. I do add a little bit of what do I call it? I paint around the edges a little bit with kind of a low opacity. I select the background color of my blankets, and then I just do a little kind of around the image.
So are you more hand editing than actions, or do you also use actions?
I use actions, but I do both, a little bit of both. So I do have my actions that I use on all of my sessions, and then I'll go in and do any kind of hand editing, especially with skin work. That's all, hand editing and any liquefying that needs to be done. And then I do add my little swooshy around the edges on every, let's call it a swooshy. On every swooshy. Yeah.
Swooshy overlay.
Swooshy overlay. There you go. That's what I call it. Yeah.
So you were speaking about trends, and I know you've been doing this for a while too, like trends with lighting. And I remember when I started, studio lighting was huge back then, and more people were studio light. Then everybody graduated to natural light, and now sort of it's coming back around. You've been at it a while though, photography.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about your start.
Well, I got my first camera when I was 13. So yeah, I had an interest in photography from a very early age. I took all my pocket money, or I guess you call it an allowance here, but pocket money in England. I saved up my pocket money, and then my dad took me down to the local camera store, and I bought like my very first SLR, which was a little Pentax film camera. And I just kind of started teaching myself on that and taking pictures of, I would just take pictures of mugs in my kitchen, just put mugs in, and then I would just take pictures of this and take pictures of that. And it was all on film back then. So, I had no idea what it was going to look like until I got it developed, and just kind of learned that way. And then when my family emigrated to Canada, I went to college and took photography in college. And at that same time started working in a camera store, and I was still working with my film camera and all that jazz. And then after I graduated college, I went and worked on the cruise ships as a passenger photographer, and it was all film on there too. Now I'm dating myself, this is back in 2000, where digital hadn't really fully come in yet. It was still film. So we would, take pictures of the passengers, and then we would run the film rolls down to the lab, and they would get developed, and we put all the prints on the wall for the passengers to buy. And yeah, from there, I just kind of started dabbling in weddings and just doing this and that. And it wasn't until, I think, with most people, they have kids, and that's when I got my baby start, was when I had my son 8 years ago, and I was at home on mat leave, and I traded in my film camera for a digital camera. I was very reluctant to trade it in, but I was like, times are changing. I have to go with the digital times, get a digital camera, and just started playing at home with him, practicing on him. And my friends all had babies around the same time. And I was like, hey, baby photography, I could do this. So that's how I fell into it, and just kind of just went from there really, and never looked back. So yeah.
Awesome. Cruise ship. How many people can say they worked on a cruise ship? I love it.
I think it's a great start. Yeah, you really learn how to deal with all types of people. Well, Charlotte, it has been lovely having you on with us today. We have loved chatting with you, and we're very excited to see you at the conference. So glad you could join us today, but more importantly that you'll be joining us next September in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Lots of wine, lots of learning.
A little awkward dancing.
Even, maybe.
Hey, I'm all up for that wine and awkward dancing. Bring it on.
Join us September 22nd to the 24th, 2018 in beautiful Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario for the Uncommon Creative Collective, Canada's Family Photography Conference.
Something awkward, I'll give you a face and then we can move on.
Show us the face, I want to see.
Yeah, 79, baby. Yeah. 79, wine and my camera, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
We could talk about babies all day.